Sokolowski.
Here.
Dean Bass.
Here.
Jamie Lennon.
Here.
Mike Beaver.
Here.
Sharon Olson. Here.
Before we approve the agenda, we're gonna move the road commission annual meeting to right before unfinished business. And then, a last minute addition, we have Craig Stolzenberg from the Village of Middleville here to talk to us about the trail agreement that we have with the village. So he's gonna talk after the clerk's minutes, and then we'll have the road commission, annual meeting. Any other changes or corrections to the agenda?
No,
I will make a motion that we approve the agenda with the corrections.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. So the first item is our clerk's minutes from our December 20th meeting. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? If there's no changes, I will make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. Craig, if you would like to come up to the podium.
Sure.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening. I apologize for the short notice. I don't know if everybody's got a copy of the past agreement.
I did not.
Okay. So we got an annual agreement for maintenance of Irving Township's portion of All Henry Trail. The village medical maintains that. Every year we maintain the entire thing. And then we pay a portion of $1,200 towards that. We did last year anyhow. It costs the village about $4,500 in man hours to maintain that every year. So, $1,200 obviously is appreciated. If there's any way that we could maybe increase that over time, or every year maybe more than that, we appreciate that just because costs are going up, man time's going up. That's not even including gas and things like that, maintenance on vehicles and things like that too, so. It's for your, consideration, and then we can, look at, Jamie and I can talk next month and maybe come up with something maybe different to present to you between now and then also.
So Craig, the only agreement I could find
Yep.
was expired, so we have a copy of one that you can send us electronically.
Yep. Take a look at that. That was signed 22 last year, so March of 22, so.
Yeah, I don't have this one, so I appreciate it. And then you mentioned it's $4,000 a year for maintaining.
It about, actually more like 4,500, just in terms of, hours. So we put about 100 hours every year to maintain that portion of it.
And what segment of, there's the trail is huge, right?
It is, so
What
it's,
segment does this cover?
so that would be just for your portion, so just for Irving Township's portion, the 2.34 mile, whatever that is.
How many miles is that in Irving Township? How many?
So the portion I'm referring to, Dean, is exclusively in Irving Township.
The 2.34?
Yes. Yep. So it's from the end of, village limits, through to the, Irving Road there.
Yeah.
So what funds pay the portion that we're not?
So it comes from the general fund of the village, so village taxpayers pay that portion.
How about is any of that, outside the village?
So there is a portion, that they're proposing to complete soon from the edge of the village going north into Black.
Main Street?
Yes, yeah, up through there, so we don't maintain any of that right now. There's a portion that we're in talks to complete that, and then we'll have to have an agreement separate for that.
Does your board come up with an I know this was kind of last minute, but have you had a
Sure.
chance to talk about an approximate cost that you would?
I think anything more than 12 would be acceptable probably, but
Okay.
whatever we come up with, I think we can figure it out, so. You know, really, it's not gonna cover whatever is there anyhow, you know, obviously, village residents utilize the Irving Township portion, or Irving residents utilize the village township portion, you know, it's, you know, it's all relative at that point, but.
The trail probably does bring revenue into the village, however, when people come in there to use it, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where that would not be true for Irving.
I mean, revenue to
The village.
the village, I mean, to the village businesses, yes, yes. Does it bring, revenue to the village coffers? I don't think necessarily, you know, but to village businesses, absolutely.
We have our, budget workshop next week, Wednesday, so
Okay.
we will, discuss that, and then, yeah, if we can kind of come up with an agreement on a number.
Yeah, we can talk, I mean, even if we, you know, came up with something that increased every year for, you know, possibly, or anything, however you want to work it out. You know,
Okay.
so.
Okay, yep, I will be in contact with you. Any other questions?
No, if you need this back,
No, we can have that, yep.
I'll make copies of it.
Any other questions for Craig?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Craig, for coming.
Yep.
All right, at this time, we're gonna turn it over to the road commission for their annual report.
Great. Thank you all for having us. I'll try to not stand here way too much, but sorry about this. Someone's worrying about it right now. Last year, with your help and all our other townships, we were able to complete the quantities of work. You can see about 25 miles of paving, 150 miles of chip sealing, some crack sealing. And as you know, we chip seal every other year in gravel every other year, but we do some of the other operations every year. So those two operations are what we flip-flop. So even though we did put a lot of gravel down last year, we still had plenty of expense, over $1 million in the scraping gravel roads, as well as adding gravel when we are out scraping in the form of ballast that our trucks are on. So we want to thank all our townships for their assistance and help with completing that. It was a successful year for us. Tree cutting contract update. Breeze through this, you guys got done a while back, a couple years ago now, maybe 3 or so. So we're moving on. We still have about 2 more years left before we'll complete the county with that trimming and tree removal project that you probably still remember. Countywide paved road current needs about $3.8 million. You can see what it's done over some time here, and I've shown you some history. It's increased over time with more and more miles that need to be done, as well as costs increasing. We are now back down into a much better place than we were, simply due to Township stepping up and helping us a lot, as well as the last gas tax increase that was passed back in 2015 that helped us do more work and get caught back up. Prices have indeed still continued to go up. There's just less roads that need to work right now than did before. So how low can that go? The answer is actually probably not much lower. We've drawn a trend line here and we kind of turned it down here, and I'll explain why. Based on 1,065 mile road system that we have in Berry County, 625 miles of which is paved, there's going to be so many that come up every year if everything's going perfectly. And if you were doing things, what we estimate as about optimized, right around 4.2 million would come up every year. We cannot make things be perfect and make the exact perfect amount come up exactly at the same time. We try to incorporate that into plans, but with investments and the way funding goes from both our township plus our state legislature, it seems to be that there's surges in funding, so there's surges in needs that come and go as well too. So anyways, kind of ideal, what we did is we started down here, that's kind of a perfect setup, and then we just added 3% inflation. Who knows what it'll actually be. But, so something coming down and actually approaching this line, and that's why we kind of turned that green line. So pink is actual, and pink is estimated over here, kind of ideal, I should say. And so we're expecting here. Of course, without enough funding or very high inflation, we'll be somewhere closer up here. But bouncing around this line, to some degree, would be about the best that could possibly be obtained. Countywide paved current needs, I mentioned, were 3.8 million. This is what it looks like divided into the 16 townships, where that work is actually located or needs to be done. And Irving's looking really nice down here with the minimal amount of work that needs to be done. The pink, for everyone in the audience, is subdivision roads versus through paved roads. But it's just our paved road needs, again, representing about 625 miles of our 1,065-mile system. Current road needs, what's on there are the segments that need work. There's a couple little caveats, we're just diving in one step deeper with the townships, nothing new here this year. But we don't put the subdivision work on there. That's gonna require a special assessment district, so when it gets to reconstruction, for example, when the subdivisions individually wanna pass a special assessment district, wanna ask us for estimates, that's when we'll do it. Now, preventative maintenance type repairs like chip seals and crack seals, and even overlays and seals, we still put those on your paved road condition report. And that's what we meet for here, and Jake will be going over with you here a little bit later in this presentation. But when it gets to the reconstruction phase, most of our townships don't have the means to pay for that. Those are usually being done by special assessment districts. We aren't taking over any subs any longer as public subs. So any subdivisions you see going in are private roads at this time, and that's just, again, to limit our liability and yours too. About 800 to 1,000 of the current needs are in subdivisions alone, so it gets it down to about 3 million just looking at our through roads. Pacer system is the 1 through 10 numbering system that we're required to use to rate all our paved roads in the state of Michigan. Every public road agency is required to use this system. There's 83 county road commissions, 600 cities and villages, and MDOT. Those are the 3 public road agencies in Michigan, all use the system. Further, that's broken down into good, fair, and poor, and you can kind of see the numbers. And we just like to point out here that this is where we like to do our repairs. This is where it's cost effective. Keep your good roads good. Stay away from the right area as long as you can. It gets atrociously expensive down here. And we just want to try to do the most optimal and cost effective right repair at the right time. And that's going to be chip sealing at the right time. And then even an overlaid seal, unfortunately now just an 1.5 inch asphalt and seal, you're approaching $150,000 to $200,000 a mile for that, depending on the width of the road area. And that's still a cost-effective preventative maintenance type repair. So they're still expensive. Road work is expensive. They get high use, high demand. It's something that we all, one of the government services we all directly use every day. Across our state, this is what the good, fair, poor looks like on our federal aid eligible roads. Now our blacktop or our paved roads are further broken down into what we call primary roads, local roads. So Wood School here, Eckerd, Little Freeport Road, those would be primary roads. Other side paved roads like Grange, for example, would be local paved roads. They're not in this chart because the state does not collect that. We do that on our roads, but the state is not. So what's collected around the state, about 30-some% of the best used roads. So all the state highways, the county primary roads, and the city and village major streets are in there. There are this 4 in the state. Berry County's primary roads in Berry County under our jurisdiction, about 9.3% for. Currently about the 3rd best road system in the state. So we're pretty happy with that. Been there for approaching a decade now, right in the top handful of counties with that kind of road condition. So we still have plenty of needs, as you saw earlier, 3.8 million, we still have 4 roads. But compared and relative to others, pretty happy with what we're sitting there. The Pacer system, if we average that out across our entire system, we're at currently about 7.2, so we're right up there. Similarly, how low can we go? I mentioned on dollar cost. How high can you go on Pacer rating? Not much higher, necessarily not for a 625-mile system, for example. When you seal a road, it lasts as an 8, goes up to an 8, it lasts at the most 2 years. But it'll stay a 7 and a 6 for a long time, potentially. So if you wanted to try to get to 8, you'd have to chip seal every other year. Well, no one can afford that. And it wouldn't be smart or intelligent anyway. If the chip seal only lasts 2 years, you need to do some other type of repair. So that's kind of a quick explanation of why. Yes, sir.
Forgive my ignorance, what is the Pacer system?
Pacer system is a 1 through 10 numbering system that all public road agencies in the state are mandated to use to rate our roads. They're rated one of these 10 numbers. The Asset Management Council is a legislative group that the legislature formed they mandate this system to use, and that stands here, the Asset Management Council.
So I should be pretty, who assigns the phaser rating?
Who does the ratings? Okay, yes. So, all our primary roads, all the state highways, and all the city village main streets are done by a committee. Committee is one of the county road commission employees that's trained from the county that it's in, one MDOT, and one regional planning official. So the MDOT and the regional planning in our West Michigan area are the same in multiple counties. We just add like Jake or Dylan from our staff, someone that's trained to that while they're in our county. So there's supposed to be continuity across the state as that moves around so that it's fair and unbiased ratings. On the local roads that's not included in this, we are doing that rating. Now, so I said hedge in the county, countywide, that's kind of all our big roads we shot. Now, Irving Township, you're right in that same category, slightly better actually. 0.3 of a point would not be noticeable out there to anybody if you think that our roads are a lot better than the average. They're slightly better, you would not notice that. We can't even notice that until we put it in the spreadsheet and forward that out and get that out. So, good spot to be. You can see your trajectories upward. Similarly, you're not gonna probably continue that upward trajectory forever. Hopefully, gonna flatten out and maintain that kind of an optimal point would be the goal. So, you guys know you've been investing heavily lately, so we're getting caught up, especially in Irving Township. You guys, thank you so much for spending a lot of money for quite a few years now, and it's paying off. And you can see, I'm not even expecting a lot more to come up this year. Before I turn this over to Jake, to point out the unit prices on this sheet, we give this sheet to our townships every year. The red numbers are ones that went up from last year. We can provide you last year's sheet if you don't have it. Probably not surprising to anyone. Usually there hasn't been that many red in 1 year, so unfortunately this year is a year though, however, we won't be chip sealing, we'll be doing gravel, and we own our own pits, and we were able to maintain that price probably for, I'm suspecting this might be the last year we were maintaining that price before it probably goes up too. So anyways, that's the price list. All the numbers you see, or if you ask us for any estimates throughout the year, will be based on these unit prices, and that's what Jake will handle in the next section. But before I turn it over, can I answer any other questions? Thank you.
All right, I will jump into your guys' paved road condition report. So we do this for every township. It goes over every segment of paved road in your entire township. And basically, each one of these boxes is a separate segment of paved road in your township. So in the top left corner here, it gives you the phaser rating that Brad was talking about. It lets you know whether it was a primary or a local road. Obviously, the road name, the length of the segment, the width of the segment, and then where that segment's located. And then, for instance, with 607, it's currently recommended for a crack seal and then the associated costs to the townships. I would note the list that Brad showed you guys is your share of the cost of those work items. Generally speaking, you guys pay for the materials and we pay for the equipment and labor. And so into each of these work item costs, the road commission has a huge share in that too. If you remember back to that very first slide that he showed you where all the chip seal was done and the amount that the township had into it and the amount the road commission has into it. So each of these work items the road commission has significant investment into, i.e. the more you do, the more we do. You know, that's how the teamwork's worked in the past and worked out really well, I think, for both of us. So as you go down the form, it lets you know how this road was constructed. So P&DS is a prime and double seal. So it was a gravel road, we put prime down, which is like an asphalt emulsion, and then sealed it twice. And then that was completed in 1958. So one of the main thoroughfares through your guys' township was completed with 2 seals. That's how it started. And then in that amount of time, if you look down, here's kind of our mix of fixes. Not that these don't switch from time to time. But these are kind of our main ones, and then we enter others as they come and go. There was an overlay in 2000. My assumption would be that's probably 1.5 inches or a 2-inch overlay in 2000. And then if it's a year that's in regular file, which is a little difficult to see on this, I have hard copies for each of your board members and then a nice shiny copy for your board as a whole. It's super easy to see in that document, so I'll give you guys those when we're done. If it's in regular font, that means that work item was recommended those years. If it's in bold, that means that it was completed that year. And then if it happens to be underlined, such like 2,000, that means that the road commission paid for that project as a whole, and the township didn't assist in funding that. So we spread that money around as best we can. We try to close the gap in what you guys are able to fund and what the actual needs are. And so some of these projects you'll see that we funded, we try to kind of put that on the primary routes a little bit, just because it's used by more of the tax base in the entire county. But you'll probably notice a couple of local roads that we've helped out on too. So, any questions on the form of this document? If you do, you're more than welcome to reach out to us at the road commission, give our office a call. We're happy to sit down with any of you guys and kind of explain this in more thorough detail. So, is there a particular segment that you guys have questions or concerns or thoughts on? Because if not, I'll probably jump into your recommendations, which is a little bit more succinct of a document. If I jump into the recommendations, we give you current recommendations. So this is all of the segments on that past document that were gray and had a recommendation. There's a bunch of them that mean nothing right now, so there's no recommendation. Obviously, they're not listed on this. So as of current, you have $42,000 in crack seal needs, which is something that we do in both gravel and chip seal years, so we can complete this work this year. You guys historically have done a ton of this type of work, and so I would say one of the best of this form we've done here, our last township presentation, so this one's super nice to do. We break it up into mainline roads and subdivision roads. You guys don't have any current needs in your subdivisions right now. And then I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd probably drop it at some point. It doesn't work real good, but we try to give you a 4-year snapshot after this current year of what to kind of expect coming up. You guys have used this to kind of set your budget moving forward and allowed us to kind of get an idea of what's coming our way, of what you guys are intending to kind of fund. So if everything were completed up above, you guys do have a fairly substantial year coming in 2024 of $276,030. I think, again, I think you see these move around a little bit, but by and large, I would guess you probably, if you look back at last year's, your recommendation for 24 was probably fairly similar to this. Some of them come and go up and down depending on how the last repair is lasting and those inspections that we do every year to set that pay rating. So if everything were done in 24, we would anticipate another $205,000 coming in large part due to a big chip seal on 607. In 2025, that wouldn't be a chip seal year, so historically you guys have kind of split those up in between doing some of them a year early and moving them some of them a year late. I think you're in good shape with all these. I don't think, none of your roads are in dire need of, if it's a year one way or the other, it's not gonna kill anything. So I think you guys are in good shape to kind of pick and choose as you choose. I would obviously wait until next year. You guys budget how you budget, but then wait until next year where we get to see how everything reacts to this winter. That's really the big to-do. So we'll do inspections again next fall. You'll get a new up-to-date with current recommendations for the 2024 season. 2026, same thing, but here's some things that have been coming down the pipe a little bit. Some overlays on Fighter, Irving, and McCann roads. I'm sure on your paved road condition report, they've listed somewhere on there overlay in future. Based on the length of time that chip seals are lasting, we base these recommendations off of life cycle costs. So say a chip seal is gonna cost $40,000 in the last 4 years, that's $10,000 per year. If an overlay is gonna cost $100,000 in the last 20 years, that's $5,000 a year. The overlay is cheaper life cycle cost wise. If we were planning for these roads to be in function for a particular period of time, potentially you could say, all right, well, how long do we need to make it till X date? Well, that's not the case. We want these roads forever. At that point, you need to really look at the long-term costs on a life cycle cost basis. That's how these recommendations are determined. This was a cheaper repair than doing another chip seal and it lasting 3 or 4 years. So that's how we get to those points. And then 2027, fairly small year. So that's what you guys kind of got looking at you in the future. 4-year plans, 12 of our 16 townships are on 4-year plans. You guys have done such an awesome job of laying out kind of your future budget. One of the big benefits to us to four-year plans is that we're able to get a lot of the prep work done in years that we know work's coming up because it's part of a four-year plan. You guys have kind of been doing that with your budget and releasing us your budget of what your kind of plans are in the future, so that our operations team has been able to go out and do the drainage. Nobody wants to be the idiot road commission that tears up a new road to replace the culvert the year after it was done. We go through and check all of the drainage culverts on all the roads that you guys choose to do. We complete those before that work gets done so that we're not those guys. And, you guys giving us the heads up on kind of what you're tentatively planning on budgeting allows us to do exactly what we're doing with all the other townships with the four-year plans. If you guys decide that you'd like to even out what you're paying each year, I think that's one of the benefits to the townships. Basically, we wrap a four-year plan in together and you pay X number of dollars, the same amount every year for that four-year plan. And then most townships are re-signing onto a new four-year plan. It makes your budgeting a little bit easier where you're saying, hey, X number of dollars to the road commission for 4 years. And then we set up a work plan for each of those 4 years that covers all the things that were on that list that you guys cost share with us on. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I can get you some options. Otherwise, what you guys are doing is clearly working. So don't feel obligated. One thing that we would like to go over, we've tried to streamline this process, so you guys authorizing us to complete road work. There's a few things that we could really use on the resolution. Basically, the road, the work type, I'll have this for you, and then I also have a template for you, and I'll email you the template. So you guys will all be good. And I have a hard copy in your packet too, so you'll have all that. The road work, the road name, the location, the cost, the work type, and then authorization that the road commission be able to do that work and bill you. So we have a template resolution that we've created. It basically is a cut and paste and fill in township blank, and if you're referencing a list, so you can reference, and if you want to reference that one page of the recommendations, you guys generally do all of them most years. If you want to recommend, or if you want to reference that specific page, attach it to the back of this referencing attached page. So I'll email you this in a Word document so that you guys have it. Hopefully it streamlines it for you guys, lets you guys know what we're needing, and then we're able to kind of get some consistency township to township. As you can imagine, 16 of you create some, we get some different stuff. So you'll have that, and then all the other things that you guys help us with, pavement markings. I'll skip to your to this map here. All the roads in red are the primary or federal aid eligible roads that Brad was talking about earlier. Those are roads that we paint with federal aid funding every other year. So on a 2-year cycle, all those red roads get painted. It happens in odd numbered years, so this coming year, all these roads will get center and edge line paint that are in red. All of the local roads that are listed in this spreadsheet are roads that you guys have chosen as a board, and I don't mean you guys in particular, but your board over time has chosen to put center and or edge line paint on. So if you notice some of these, Robertson, section Robertson, that doesn't have center or edge line paint. I know of no complaints about that. You have Fighter Road that has center line but no edge line. Same thing, I don't believe I've had any complaints about that. If you guys ever chose to add to those, just let us know, we can work that out. We'll let you know how much it costs. I mean, again, you see the costs aren't astronomical, so we can work that out with you if you need. Generally speaking, just on what I've seen, we kind of inspect these as we do our road inspections each year, as far as the brightness of the paint still and how much it's worn off. Generally, it's a 3-year cycle. It's almost pretty religious that every 3rd year it needs painted. On the primary federal aid eligible, we do it every other year just to keep those as bright and vibrant as we can. So you got about $2,000 worth of needs on your pavement markings. And then dust control, you guys complete dust control annually. This is your spreadsheet of what you guys complete and where. Basically, some roads you guys do a double pass where they go down one side and come back the other, and it pretty well covers the whole road. There's other roads, looks like about 10 miles that you guys complete that just does one lane right down the middle. And then you got a few roads, I'm assuming in the stadium area, that are that you don't do any dust control on, but for the most part you got a double pass on the majority of your system. This is that in map form. So if you ever want this adjusted, if you wanted to switch one of these to a double pass, just let me know. I'll adjust your map, I'll adjust your spreadsheet. We don't bid this stuff out until, I think we're gonna bid at the very beginning of March. So once that's bid, I'll send you a letter like we do every year for the cost of the exact same plan that you guys completed the year before. And it'll have all the bidders on it, and then you guys can choose whichever bidder that you'd like to go with. So if you have any questions on that, certainly let me know. If you want to make any adjustments, let us know as well. This is a gravel year, so these are your gravel sheets. So much like the paved road condition report that I showed you, this is kind of that in gravel road form. However, there's not as much exciting information on this one. Really, the condition of a gravel road changes so frequently that basically the big thing that matters about a gravel road is how much gravel is on that road currently. So our drivers that scrape up your road, they flip over the gravel, they're out there on the road all the time, they come up with these numbers. I don't go and dig holes in the road and try to figure out all the dimension and half for gravel on this road. Our guys fill this out each year, and they give us an idea of what's on the road, and then based off of those, we recommend to you guys how much gravel to put down. Basically, all of these numbers and all these needs are based on each of your roads having 6 inches of gravel. I know you guys started 2 years ago, where I think we kind of, at that point, were thinking to do about 20% of your system every gravel year for the next 5 years, which would be spread out over a 10-year period, trying to get 6 inches of gravel, much like Woodland just did over the last 7, 8 years. It's definitely worked well in Woodland. They too, much like you guys, had a pretty darn good handle on their paved system. But you guys do see some of the paved road needs that are coming your way in the future. Take a look at this document. You can kind of see in this last column, gravel placed in 2021. So you can see the roads that we put the 6-inch lifts on the last time we did this. We estimate that between 3/8 and 3/10 of an inch of gravel is lost annually. So you'll see these over from 2 years ago has dropped about a half an inch. By the time you were potentially done with your whole system, you'd be about half of what you were, and you'd be, we'd be recommending another 2.5 inches. But again, you're kind of cutting it in half, you're making some progress on it. However you guys choose to do this, the one recommendation I'd give you, it's a lot cheaper to neglect these gravel roads than it is to neglect the paved roads. If right now a gravel road needs 6 inches of gravel, and you don't do anything to it for 20 years from now, it's gonna need 6 inches of gravel. And if the cost of gravel's increased a little bit over that period of time, which it obviously will, that's the only cost increase. If currently a mile of paved road needs a chip seal at $20,000 a mile, and you neglect that and don't do anything for 20 years, it potentially could need an overlay or a reconstruct at $1 million a mile. So I just throw that to you and kind of let you guys chew on that a little bit. I know most of you guys have heard that before and know how that works. So just kind of see where your budget's at, and if you need help kind of analyzing that, I'm happy to meet with you guys and work that out and figure that out with you. Total need for your township, you guys have about $50,000 for 50,000 cubic yards in need. Much like you guys were talking about biting off a big huge chunk of that 2 years ago and saying, hey, let's do half of that. We don't have that much gravel to give you. So spreading it out over a longer period of time, it's similar to buying all your trucks at one time and then 20 years from now wondering why all your trucks are dying at the same time. I think doing this segment of your system systematically over a time period where you can kind of start over at some point and start maintaining that seemed to kind of make sense to you guys at the time and worked out, so you chose to do about 20% of what you had. This would have been a little bit larger of a number last time, but obviously over 2 years it loses some, so here's where you're at right now.
Did we decide on a dollar amount or a gravel amount?
I think it was 20% of the road length or the road needs that you guys were planning. At the time, at least, you guys had decided that over a 10-year period you wanted to do it. With us doing gravel every other year, that meant 5 gravel cycles you were intending to get that 6-inch lift on all of them. But if you think about it, these roads that just had 6 inches placed not that long ago now have needs of a half an inch. Well, that's included in this 50,000 yard price, or 50,000 yard quantity. So you kinda gotta take those out of there. If you guys wanna know what 20% was, let's look back at what you did 2 years ago. Prices haven't changed, and the needs haven't increased any more than the gravel deteriorating off the road at the same rate it is off of those other ones.
Okay.
So I think we can come up with that number pretty easily if you guys are wanting to stay on that plan. So, all right, any questions on this document? You guys will have this hard copy too, so. Hearing none, that is all I have for you specific to your roads in Irving Township. I'll give it back to Brett.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Jamie provided me this. Is this something you guys produce?
No, that's the stuff that I was talking, you guys have done such a good job budgeting. It, in my quick inspection annually, has reflected those future year outlooks. So that's kind of where that document's been provided or presented to
And
us.
then is there some place we can go to see if each of these line items have been completed, as you had said? What that report will tell us?
So the work that was completed last year, I can certainly get you a list of. It was everything that you guys approved last year we completed. So I can get you a list of the road work that was completed last year. It'll match what's in your budget, because all that was completed, and then the
So if
stuff.
it's here, I can assume it was done.
Yes, yes, but on the further years out, obviously that was based off of that crystal ball kind of projection of what would be coming up in future needs. So,
And then, from a budget perspective, right, we have a fiscal year that runs from April 1st to March 31st.
yeah.
Are these numbers, when you give us here, are those calendar years?
Yes, ours is calendar years, but we're pretty darn flexible as far as all of our townships are on a different cycle.
Yeah.
So we're pretty used to working with however your guys' cycle works. We're happy to work with that. We're not, we're in good shape in that regard, so. All right,
Thank you.
no problem.
Well, Jake showed you current needs in 4 years, what kind of can be anticipated. This is even a longer range look. Expected average annual maintenance expenses based on today's unit prices, those same unit prices from the sheet. Based upon the size of your system with about 40 miles of pavement, about 35 miles of gravel, we would anticipate annually asking you all for about $346,000 based again on today's unit prices. So that is what we're short to fulfill that need. So you can see where you are a little bit ahead, even though some of those years, a couple out, are still pretty darn good years. You don't have any quite this high. Now, these little green diamonds, here's that 346,000 right now. That's what that was over time. And why this increased is because of unit prices increase. This is just if we could do it perfectly, what it should cost. Again, what should come up on an annual basis. This is what your budget has done, so you're running parallel to that. We have some other townships where their bottom line is this way or even slanted downward. There, of course, that gap is widening. We're not overly concerned about this gap with you because we do our best to try to fulfill that gap that we can in the form of, we borrowed $4.5 million in 2016. You probably remember we did some free ones for you. When you do some projects with us, there's usually some ones that, when I say free, they're not free, but we don't charge you. It's free to you. We do our best to fill this gap. And then the other thing is to the extent you utilize special assessment districts in some of your subdivisions for, if you did some overlays that way or repairs that way, that would also help fulfill that gap. But obviously, any kind of gap is a concern to us. There is not enough revenue to get this done. And so we're just pointing that out where we're at. But we're gonna keep doing our best to try to add to the program you do and keep that filled and the roads repaired at the rate it appears. Many of the segments at the rate it appears at the right time as we can. Upcoming staff changes. Point out, Dave Dykstra, attended his last board meeting today for 24 years. So he didn't make it here tonight, but, county board did some interviews as well today. And it sounds like they are gonna recommend, Jim James, who attended tonight, thanks for coming earlier, as a replacement for Dave Dykstra, which I think it'll be official a week from now. So we haven't started road commissioner yet, but welcome and thanks for coming early. Thank you. And then we also, do some introductions. Dave Solms and Frank Fiala are 2 other road commissioners, and Dylan Kennedy from our shading department. And that links up to the road commission staff. That's really nice. Some of you may have heard, I know Jamie did, she talked to me about that. This is my last year. I'll be working through the end of this year as the director of the Grant County Road Commission. By the end of next year when I leave, I'll be just shy of 28 years. Board for this construction season, because we have 4 big federal aid projects this summer. One of them has 2 bridges, so there's actually 5 pretty big projects this summer. And we'll be, hoping to have that staff in and trained before every part, and so that the community hopefully feels like it's a pretty seamless transition. That's at least the goal at this time. So, just wanna thank you all, and we have a lot of friends here in the audience and on board, and it's been a pleasure, and I thank you all for your support. And you're all very good. We will have our spring road tours, happy to have those, and take you out on those if you'd like. And pretty much all we have, but I'd like to close with a lot of information here. We went through it really fast. No one gets most of this the first time. If you come to this once a year, 3-4 years, you'll be pretty darn good, honestly. So welcome to the nice to meet you earlier. But you don't have to wait a year. Call us anytime. We'll do this darn whole thing again. If you just want to go over, hey, let me understand, come over here for 15 minutes, or if you're in Hastings, and go over this payment marking part of this. Get you that. It takes a few times, trust me. So even for the full-time staff, it takes a few times. So, yeah, so just be a stranger, feel free to ask some questions. Same for the public. Anything you have to explain to me in more detail. With that, I have nothing other than answering more questions.
Right. Could you briefly touch on the gas tax index this year?
Oh, yeah. You probably heard at the beginning of January, the legislature increased the gas tax by 5%. It's now indexed to inflation. When I mentioned our last funding increase that happened in 2015, it allowed for the indexing of the gas tax to start in 2021. So this is also inflated this year by 5% of the 26 cents per gallon gas tax. So about 1.3 cents or so, 1.4 cents per gallon, January 1st, the gas tax went up. Doesn't mean gas went up. Gas might have went down that day, might have went up 30 cents. It was only 1.3 cents was the effect of that, though. That amounts to about $191,000 projected for this year, additional revenue for us. We never used to get that in the history of Act 51, which is the legislation that funds us. But, so it's a nice thing to help take the curse off, but fuel alone this past year cost us $276,000 more than the year before, so there's no new big programs coming. We can see that, a 5% increase. We're just hoping to not fall back as far behind. You know, and 5 years of that is $1 million, and that's something we're not used to getting either. So at least it'll hold on a lot longer than the past funding increases have ever been able to hold on. At least a little trickle in. So, yeah, so then don't think that was a big major windfall, but I want to pass on to that. Same for the village, is my exact same percentage situation for them. It's no windfall for them either. So.
Any
Questions?
from the board for the road commission? Anyone have a question?
Are you stalking me?
I just want to say, well, we look at all this pavement work that they do. They are a huge part of emergency services in our community, and we don't always think about that. But when we're out with tree limbs down, they're out in the middle of the night with us. They're doing all of that when we're running structure fires, and especially in the middle of the winter. They're out dropping salt out on the roads and trying to make sure that everybody's staying safe. So we really appreciate everything.
Pulling out snowbanks too.
Pulling, yeah, they're maybe and pulling out a snowbank once or twice. Just really appreciate the partnership of the road commission and the work that these guys do. They're amazing. And they're really, really responsive. I know the village of Freeport is within Irving Township as well. And even when they talk about that pavement markings, when we need pavement markings in the village, they let us connect on with them. We personally pay for all of ours, but because they're already out there, that's a cost savings to the village because they let us know when those things happen. So they're just great partners in the community.
Here's your copies, individual for each of the board members.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
All right. last month we talked about some board of review alternate members. Mike Bremer was one that, said that he would be happy to be an alternate member. He has withdrawn his request. And then our other alternate would be Lori Bush. So, any comment or discussion from the board on our board of review alternate members? In the years I've been here, we've never had an alternate member. I'm not against it, I'm just letting you know where we as a township have stood in the past.
I was no.
Quick question for you. Deal with this PR. Have you had, it looked like there was 2 meetings in a row, we had one member absent. Do you find that that's, would be more beneficial if you had an alternate to fill in for those meetings?
Not necessarily. We function just fine with just the 2 members. I don't
I've
see.
never had an issue.
Yeah, we've never had an issue meeting quorum.
We have a board meeting, but it has a,
Shelley?
I was just gonna say, I actually started as an alternate, it was a long time ago, so, and then got, appointed when someone resigned. So I was already in and trained,
That would-
That's right, I forgot, yes.
yeah.
That would be my only concern, is that by having an alternate, we're training somebody else in case you do have a company that you can't fill. That's why I think it's a big benefit.
Okay. So I'm just letting you know where we stand with the 2 people who have stated that they would be an alternate.
So do you want to move ahead with Lorraine from that position? Do you need a motion?
When do we need to, what's that this one?
We need to decide tonight because the training
training
happens
is
in
in February.
February.
Yeah.
And that is a requirement this year to do a training in February. I did talk to MTA and MTA said that, a deputy can be on board review. The deputy clerk being the farthest, or the, how do I wanna say that?
Yeah, you're right, the farthest from the conflict.
Yes, thank you, farthest from conflict of interest. Since I don't have a deputy, my deputy, if I had one, would be the closest conflict of interest.
And the treasurer.
And then treasurer. So Lorraine would be the, farthest from that. Are you still I guess I should ask, are you still interested?
yes, I'm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I would like to make a motion to.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Dee.
Oh, I was
Did
just
you have
gonna
a
say,
question?
it would be my opinion, we don't need an alternate.
Okay, do you want to make a motion? It's up to you.
Well, I'll make a motion that we don't need an alternate.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Procedure standpoint. So we did make a motion and voted for an alternate before, in the, not last meeting, but the meeting before. So now we're rescinding that vote?
Well, I think Doug started to make his motion first, so.
Well,
Address it first.
can you, I don't remember making
Not
a
in the November
motion.
meeting, but when we first started, it might have been the November meeting actually, that we talked about adding an alternate.
We talked about it, yes.
And we said move ahead, maybe we did vote, maybe we changed our vote. I don't know.
We did.
Did we vote or not?
Yeah, student too.
Yeah,
We tabled until this month.
yes, we tabled it till we were all back together.
Yes.
So,
So go ahead, you were speaking first, so. if you want
my
to go
motion
ahead with your
is that
motion.
we appoint Lorraine as alternate and get her trained so she can serve properly.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor say aye.
No,
Opposed?
no.
One opposed. So, all right, I have a brochure at home, but then the training is also on the MTA website. So I can either send you the brochure for the training, there is in-person and also online training, so. I'll talk to you about it after the meeting too. All right, and then our next item of unfinished business is the records room that, Doug has been working on getting quotes.
Yeah, so in your packets, there are 2 quotes. I had to go back to these 2 companies, talk a little bit about what was in their quotes. So there's been some handwritten adjustments that are mine. So you see on the one from Prestige Home, I crossed out the temperature thing. We did talk with them about environmentally controlling that room, but I think that if we choose to do that, we should work with the furnace people that we worked with in the past. Let's keep our heating and cooling with the company that knows our stuff. So I crossed that line out. I did add in lights, because he got to put lights in there. I don't know anyone who's been in the records room, but you'll see it's very dark in there. Records are hard to read. And then in the other one, I crossed out doorknobs on the Miller one. That was a miscommunication in the sense that I did ask for doorknobs on what would eventually become the computer room, and he included it on this quote. We already have brand new doors and doorknobs on the current records room, so we don't need that. So by the time you make those adjustments, these quotes are close together. Both companies are local companies, but I would like to make a recommendation to the board that we adopt Miller Custom Building quote and engage them to finish the records room this fiscal year.
Is the total for Prestige the 3,000 and then the 100 extra, so 3,100?
Yeah,
or is it
3,100.
3,000 total?
3,100 would be the
Okay.
total for them,
Okay.
and then 3,500 would be the total for Miller.
And what was the benefit of Miller over Prestige?
There'd be a change in Miller, I think, based on our conversation. Miller is proposing an LVL flooring, which is a tile flooring. The reason they did that is because we asked for that up here, and they thought we might want to be consistent throughout the building. But I think that we would go with epoxy downstairs. It gives us a moisture-free barrier. So I project that that cost might come down a little bit from them and be more in line with the epoxy floor coat from Prestige, which was $1,500 instead of $1,900. So I think overall you'll see this come down a little bit more when we switch the type of flooring. Now, of course, if the board wants tile down there, then we can stay with this, but I think epoxy, and I did have a brief conversation with Sharon, I think epoxy is kind of a better solution for downstairs, because it creates that barrier we need.
Okay.
So again, my motion would be for the Miller, to adopt Miller and engage them to finish that record room. They are on about a 6 to 8 week backlog. So if we want to do it, we gotta get on the calendar.
I will second that motion.
Motion, second by Jane. Okay, roll call. Mike Beeler,
Yes.
Dean Bass,
Yes.
Doug Sosnowski,
Yes.
Jamie Knight, Sharon Olson, I say yes.
We'd like to make one of them in the budget that we'll go through next week. I did put it in for us to look at the other phases, the other 5 phases in the budget to examine. And this by no means commits us to do all 5 of Miller. So we can cherry pick as a board once we get there.
Oh, you did get quotes from them, right?
I
For
know.
all
All 5 phases.
from both
I just
of
didn't
these,
include them in here.
both of these companies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't include it here because I wanted to focus on what we're trying to pass tonight.
Yeah.
But the rest are available.
Okay. Thank you for your work on that.
You're welcome.
All right. So, moving on to, new business. At the end of our meeting last month, I passed out the rules of procedure that was, made up by our attorney. In no way did we ever adopt this document. Changes can be made. It's not something we have to even adopt. We can adopt it with changes. We can adopt it as is. We don't have to adopt anything. everybody's had a month or so to look at this document. I'm opening it up for the board to discuss their thoughts about this document.
So Jamie, there's several areas here that I have issues with. I think overall this document comes in invalid because of the conflict in here between naming a chair, saying that we need to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and then saying in section 8 that everyone needs to vote. In Robert's Rules of Order, revision 12th edition, section 4.56, it clearly states the chair can only vote in situations that would break a tie. And based on the rules of townships, every member of the board must vote every time. By putting the supervisor in the position of chair and following these rules of Robert Order, you would not be allowed to vote every time unless you were to break a tie. And that is a violation of state charter. We can run this by the attorney, but I've reviewed this a couple times with a few folks, and this document has that issue.
Okay.
I tend to agree with that. I don't often tend to agree with Doug, but
First time for
I think this document confuses things that we already do. We follow the procedures here. We may not follow exactly, but there's going to be any contest about what we're doing on this board. People can make that contest whether we have a document or not. And it's just another thing for us to talk about and the public to talk about it, and it's not gonna resolve anything. So I think what we're doing fine. If anybody doesn't like what we're doing, or thinks we're doing it wrong, they can certainly come to us and say that. So I would make a motion that we do not adopt this resolution.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion from Mike or Sharon on this document? No.
Yeah, I can't, it became more beneficial than what was already said.
Okay. All right, so motion and second, and let's go ahead and just do a roll call on it.
Dean Bass,
Yes.
Doug Sapowski,
Yes.
Mike Wheeler,
Yes.
Jamie Knight,
Yes.
and also I say yes.
All right. Next item on new business is our fire board members. Currently, we have, for our Birch Fire Department, Dean and I sit on the board. For Freeport, Lanny and Mary Drummel sit on the board for Irving Township. And then, we do not have a member for the Thornapple board. I do have a letter that I'm gonna share with the board, from a resident, Rhonda Van Pullen, who is interested in sitting on the Thornapple board. So I will pass that out. And I'll also publicly read it for the public. At the board meeting on December 20th, 2022, there was a lengthy discussion regarding the fire contract and the departments that service Irving Township. I was given the opportunity to comment during that time and noted I felt some of the issues could be handled with better and regular communication, and suggested someone attend the regular meetings be held by the boards and committees of Thornapple, Freeport, and Birch departments. I understood Mr. Sokolowski to say that he was already in practice. I contacted a few people the next day and realized that while some from Irving Township does attend Freeport and Birch, no one attends the Thornapple meeting. At this point, I'm mulled over how I can be of service to the township. I would like to offer my time to attend the monthly Thornapple meeting as an Irving Township resident. This would be purely to gain knowledge from the TTES meeting and share knowledge with the Irving Township Board. I would not expect to speak on behalf of Irving Township, nor would I take that liberty. I would also neither expect nor accept any compensation. The goal, as I stated, would be to gain and share knowledge and be of service to the township. Please let me know if you would like to discuss this further. So at this time,
So to be clear, we're appointing people from the community to go in place of members of the board, right?
Well, I would say that each of these boards have only 2 people. And I think that each board needs a board member on it. And matter of fact, Birch requires that. So I think that, having a combination of a citizen and a board member makes perfect sense.
and that is not, just so we know, that is not a requirement for Thornapple Board. It is for Freeport and it is for Birch.
It
To
should,
have members of
Yeah.
Irving Township on their board.
it should be for us. As a board, we should be interested in attending and having, basically a citizen as a backup or as a second caretaker. I think each of these boards demand the attention of our board.
I am served by Thornapple. If you want a board member on, I would volunteer for that.
Okay. Is this something that you would like to discuss further at this meeting, or would we like to think about our options and talk about it next meeting?
Why don't we, I would like to make a motion that we postpone until
Table
the next.
until February?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need a second or vote or what? Is that a motion?
Someone needs a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will add that to the agenda. Do you wanna talk about the next item?
Yeah, sure. So, Jamie, as you're aware, the board of review is going to need envelopes for sending out the new assessments. Approximately 1,700 of them. So we used to use Geiger as a printing form, but we have found, by buying directly from USPS, we actually save a lot of money. Because USPS, only charges you $20 total for 500 envelopes, and then the postage. With Geiger, we would have to pay for the envelopes, the printing, and then the postage. So right now, we're paying, $367.55 for 500 envelopes. I'd like to make a motion that we buy 4 boxes totaling $14.72 to support the mailing of assessments.
And I'll second that.
Roll call. Doug Sokolowski,
Yes.
Dean Bass,
Yes.
Mike Wheeler,
Yes.
Sharon Olson, I say yes, Jamie Knight.
Yes. All right, thank you, Doug.
We'll get those orders right away, so you have them.
All right, we're gonna move on to our fire reports. Lainey, do you wanna present reports?
Well, I think in the last meeting, what I realized was that as your representative, I would have been doing is reading the report that you get, and you're all very capable of reading that report, right? So let me just go over some of the other things that have happened on the board, at the last meeting. One thing from the report that you have, we did, end the year with 189 calls for the Freeport Fire Department, which is a 9% increase in calls. The county did have a 34.2% increase in medical first responder calls across the county. So I thought that was interesting. The AED has arrived, that was ordered back in August of 2021. And that was purchased with the firefighters fund. We also received 2 new hot sticks. I tend to like to bring you the demonstrations. I didn't bring these, but the new hot sticks will help us identify whether a down power line is still live or not. And obviously, we're still gonna be very careful, but it will help us better identify which ones are live. Our SCBA packs, maybe you remember, we wrote the grant to FEMA and received the grant for $150,000. The portion of Freeport's, the portion that the FEMA paid was $142,000 of that. We did receive that check, because we did put in the order for the packs. The packs have arrived, but we are still waiting for the masks and the bottles to arrive. We do anticipate those arriving by the end of this month. What that will mean though is that we're gonna need to re-certify with our SCBA masks. There's a requirement to do that. So because the masks are different, we'll need to recertify, so there will be additional cost with that. The cost for those $150,000 of the packs to the Freeport Fire Department was $7,000. We had a 5% match. So pretty excited about that grant. And the first quarter report has been completed to FEMA, and we received, that went really well. A couple of other things, we have one of our, Alex is in fire officer class, and we have another, one of our firefighters that is in MFR class, becoming a medical first responder. Currently a firefighter, now going on, again, used grant dollars for those positions. Last month we talked about working on making sure that we are putting together a flyer or something for to encourage people to become members of the fire department. In having conversations at EMS Council and at the Fire Association, what we realized is that really it's something that we need across Berry County. And so we're gonna put together a fire, EMS, and dispatch brochure that will encourage people to become involved in public safety and emergency services. So I should have that completed for you and for you to be able to take a look at the next meeting. But they're very excited. The other fire chiefs are very excited about this idea because it's not just us, right?
No.
It's Bellevue and it's Johnstown and it's everyone. So if Sharon, who wants to have some of these brochures, is in a meeting and there's somebody there that's not from Freeport Hastings, we want Sharon to be able to encourage that person to join whatever fire department they're in. So doing something countywide made a lot more sense, and the fire departments are thrilled with it because they don't have to do it.
I don't know if you saw the e-letter,
I
we
did,
did put
thank
something
you.
in there for that.
Yeah.
And if you want to, we can take that brochure and give it to Pixel and have it put on our website also when it's ready.
So that will be the goal, is for every township then to be able to upload that. And again, because it will be the same, all fire departments are a little bit different as to the ages, but we're gonna address that in the brochure. We're gonna kind of do it across the board, but all the fire chiefs are greatly appreciative, and EMS as well, because we know that those are some real needs, as well as dispatch. So we're gonna be putting that together. So pretty excited about that, and for sure we're gonna have that for the February 24th career fair at Hastings High School, and we will be present that day with some demonstrations encouraging, because and we'll do it when they do it at Thornapple as well, but the next one coming up is February 24th.
If you haven't already, involve Jim Brown, because he was talking about doing the same thing.
Well, Roger Karras is aware of it,
Okay,
so,
great.
yeah, so we talked with the fire chiefs about it, but I can certainly call Jim, I know him well.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a good guy.
But again, just to do it for Hastings, right, like, we need, everybody is in need of those positions, so
That's a great idea.
we'll do something awesome and be able to do it across the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the Freeport Fire Department? We are on budget, staying within budget. We do have that $150,000 grant, which increased, well, more than doubled our budget this year. Our budget usually runs around $100,000, $103,000 to $108,000, but with a $150,000 grant, $142,000 grant, obviously, that changes that balance sheet a little, but it's all expended, so.
That's a great report.
All
I
right,
love that.
Thornapple
Good job.
Township for the month of December. In Irving Township, they had 2 fire, 12 medical, and 2 fire EMS. Year-to-date, they had, for 2022, they had 156 runs in Irving Township. Response time priority 3 was 12:59 for the month of December. And then Hastings, they had a total of 66 runs in December. In Irving Township, they had a total of 5. Response time in Irving Township was 13 minutes. And it's important to note, these were all toned as non-emergency calls, which were slower response times. And then Dylan Lee joined the fire department as a volunteer that month as well. And then our assessor's report. Building permits, 4 homes, 2 pole buildings, 2 others, 46 deed and property transfers, principal residence exemptions, 5 filed, split combined 3 letters sent out were 13, finalized studies with the county, and held December border review.
Just real quick, that's not in our pack, will that be included in supporting documents?
Yes,
Yeah,
Lauren,
yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. All right, did you wanna go over the cemetery information that you provided me?
Just for the month of December, we had, we didn't have any cemetery plots, but we had a total of 12 for the year, so that's down from 18 from 2021.
And it looks like you've already had 1 this year.
2.
You've had 2?
1 in each, who's this one here?
Oh, I can see that, yes, sorry, 1 in each cemetery.
1 in each of the cemeteries,
Okay.
that's correct, yeah.
All right. All right, we are gonna move on to the treasurer's report.
So you can see our balances, in the accounts. I won't go over all those, it's in the report. I do want to report, make a correction to the interest earned. We do periodic checks with our banks to make sure they're paying us what they committed to. We found an error at Consumer Credit Union in the amount that they pay us. They owe us another $974.25. They are making that correction, it should show up in the next statement. So that will bring our total interest this year to $5,889.25. The IT upgrades, which is old business, we've now included those in the fiscal year 23-24 for discussion next week. The town hallship improvements, with the exception of the record rooms, also is included in the 23-24 budget for discussion next week. We did have the auditors come in on the 11th of January. They provided invaluable service, and Sharon can speak to this also, but they looked through our reconciliations, made sure we were on track, things looked good. They did give us some suggestions for some fixes there. They went through the budget because per state law, as we talked about, all account numbers have been changed. Not all, but a significant portion of account numbers have been changed, so I have gone through and tried to identify those changes. They found a few that I missed, so that we are compliant now with state law when we institute the new budget. Okay. But meanwhile, they did help set those things up, I think, Sharon, in your current.
Wait, yeah, they worked with me on that.
Yeah, so we're in pretty good shape there. They will issue us a formal report, and we should have it by next board meeting. The furnace repairs were completed, and you'll see that on the bill pay list, it was $600 and some, much better than what we were told initially, that it could be up to thousands of dollars. They were able to find a rebuild pump and put that in for us. And we should be good to go for a while. And then the last thing about mandatory policies, the auditor went through that with us, identified and made notes on that one sheet I showed last meeting. So I think that we can spread that out between February and June to fill those gaps. And the auditor provided free copies of examples of each one of those policies for us. so we can modify those. So I think we can do that at a pretty low cost, right? And then moving to the treasury calendar, just a reminder, everyone wants to hear, 14th February is the last day to pay your taxes without interest and penalties. We only in this township charge interest. 28th of February, we will be open from 9 to 5. That's the last day to pay your taxes here. After that, you must deal with the county directly. Okay? And then just the last thing, the board members, you would see this on your desk, or in front of your spot, everyone. This is the workbook that we'll use next week. It has a executive summary in here for you to review. The blue tab is this year's budget, and the red tab is next year's budget. The only reason I gave you this year's budget is so that you can have something to compare to. And that covers that copy, that's it. The receipt list is next attached. It shows you where we got all the money this month. I do also want to point out that Consumers Credit Union has raised both of our interest rates to 1.7 from 1.5, in acknowledgement of the fact that they made a mistake. So we have that for a year. That's it.
And is this the workshop on the 25th?
I'm sorry.
The workshop, is it not on the 25th?
Yeah, Wednesday the 25th.
Okay.
Would that be the wrong date? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was the 24th. We moved it to
Yeah,
25th.
okay, I just wanted to.
On the book, it's the 25th.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
Wednesday, not Tuesday.
And again, just a shameless plug, if you haven't signed up for the e-letter, please go to our website and sign up for it. It gives a lot of helpful information. We do take the opportunity as people come in to pay their taxes, we give them a copy to take with them. Thank you.
All right, move on to our bill payment list. Any questions? I will make a motion that we,
I have postage was printed into it and use that. And from the Excel spreadsheet.
okay,
Yeah, it's the original, only had the one with checks. I had to manually enter these.
are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve the bills in the amount of $5,455.74.
I'll second that.
Right, roll call.
Mike Mueller,
Yes.
Doug Sokowski,
Yes.
Dean Bass,
Yes.
I say yes. Jamie Knight,
Yes. All right. Any board member comments at this time?
No.
Anything? Okay. Sure.
I didn't really come prepared to make any comments, so.
All right. At this time, we will open it up for the public. 3-minute comment if you'd like to come up to the podium and speak.
So I don't like Irving Township, going back a couple months, October. Primarily directed at the comment that trustee Bass said towards, our duly elected clerk Sharon, where he stated that that's Sharon, whenever she's in trouble, she calls her friends. First, I'm gonna give a little bit of a history lesson here. On August 1st of 2022, there was one precinct delegate in Irving Township. August 3rd, day after the election, there were 9 to fill all of our seats. 8 of those are American First Patriots who I'd probably call me friends. Same dates, August 1st, Perry County had 37 precinct delegates. August 3rd, they had 141, 108 of those were American First Patriots. Many of those were my friends. wasn't Sharon that made the phone call. It was us, the precinct delegates. And we will continue to do that whenever we feel there's a need to support one of our people, regardless of who we are. She was fighting for our election integrity, for the residents of Irving Township. And for this board not to support her was a travesty. So I'll tell you this, Sharon, I'll tell you this, Doug. We had your backs. We had your backs now, we'll have your backs moving forward. 2024 is coming up. And we'll take notice. Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Scott Arby, Jackson, Michigan. I'd like to reiterate that gentleman's comments. I've never been asked to come down. I have requested information on when these meetings are. I just drove down from Escanaba, Michigan to attend this meeting, this evening, to support this clerk, to support this treasurer. And I have a legal action I'll address at the next board meeting after reading the agenda, and I assume you're behind something on this agenda, Madam Supervisor. I'm going to bring the law in with me, and if necessary, I'll bring law enforcement in with me. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, that will close public input. Upcoming dates, January 25th, next week, Wednesday at 6:30 is our budget workshop. And then on February 25th is our next township board meeting at 6:30. I will make. What did I say? Oh, sorry, I have 21st, February 21st at 6:30.
And it's not just for one meeting, isn't it also on budget hearing, or no?
That's in March. Before our next meeting. I think we did it one
We
year.
did it in February, and it helps our bookkeeper, our payroll people. Because then we have to get appropriations act for them to get that.
Okay, so,
Can we
So
consider doing that?
I'm sorry, is there a separate meeting for the appropriation act, or is it just built into the agenda of the February meeting?
a half an hour before, one year we did it in February.
We just opened with the budget, the public hearing for the budget, for the public to come and comment one way or the other whether or not they approve of the proposed budget before we actually vote it into our working document.
Again, I apologize for being ignorant on this. So next week, we just present the draft budget,
Yep,
and then the public can have copies of that.
Yep.
There is a copy on the back desk right now, and I guess they could send an email, and I can send them electronic, so they have it ahead of time, is that before Wednesday?
yes, but Wednesday is when we as a board can sit and talk and
Right.
make changes and
Okay.
that.
And
Usually
then,
at the March meeting, we do that. I think we did it one year, because then I wasn't able to be here.
and then we have to have a hearing after that to adopt the final budget.
Before it's elected, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, we had to do a hearing beforehand, and then we have our regular board meeting, and during that regular board meeting,
We adopt
Yeah.
the resolution.
we adopt the resolution. So, I mean, do you think we'll be ready for that in February?
Well, we only have the one.
I guess we'll be able to determine that next week, how much work is left to do.
Okay.
Can we make a motion at next week, at that meeting, to do it in February, or?
Yeah, I
Can you
think
make
so, as long
motions
as
at
it's
the budget
posted,
meeting?
it has to be posted in the paper, like, with 7 days before the meeting.
So next week, once we see the feedback on the budget, we could make a motion at that meeting to have the review. of
hearing.
Yes,
The
the
hearing,
hearing.
okay.
Yeah.
Why we do that?
Okay. So February 21st at 6:30 would be our next board meeting and possibly the budget hearing. All right, I will make a motion that we adjourn at 7:55. All right, meeting adjourned.
Yeah, I'll see that, I'm not procedure. That's all right, actually, I'm looking forward to very much.
Telegram was just check to see if you're gonna be here, which is, I got my answer. Yeah. That's, you know, well, I guess there's if that's better, what you, sure. Anyway, it was primarily
Hi, Rick. How are you?
good. Good. There is a link to the entire guide, right? I mean, should be able to. Yeah. There is. I just want to be ready. Yeah. I signed up for set up a tear down, and I didn't realize that's 10 o'clock in the morning is what this
Well,
I cut it a little short, I cut a couple of the things, but she told me to nice.
Well, see, yeah, there you go. You know, that was very strategic on his part. Speaking of neutral position,
I know.
yeah, that's very wise move.
We have 1 year. There's now, we've got the process here almost not
It's not good animals. I mean, the horses don't.
Yeah.
Oh, man, because there's nothing for them. I got they came in and changed how the paddock was and all that, and it did a nice job, right? But it used to be your stuff's all over and grass and stuff. And she brought some out, and she's like,
The sheriff looks bad for you.
they're beating the shit out of them. It's rain, until it freezes. Keep it raked, and so when it does freeze, you know.
So, because I don't know every time that teams and facilities
I'm gonna tell you, there's no. I was in there. Walking around there, I always take their shoes.
No, I didn't know.
Clean it up, and this time of year, I try not to. I'm thinking, because it's getting cold in it, right?
You're in my driveway the other day.
Yeah. No. After this rain, it's.
Just created another need desperate. Oh, I just got a raise. I told her, you know, and, yeah. And I've been here 3 times, and this is the second time it's rained. I'm thinking Irving Township only meets when it rains. Is that the deal? Is it like he's just making rain?
In the group, I want to finish the soup.
Oh, I had a program on my phone.
St. Clair's, really,
I did, in the end, I backed off, yeah.
I was supposed to have been here today, and I just or something. She's been less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, there you go. I've got a trustee that stepped down last month. You know, I said,
I need to talk to you too, but since we were playing some music, I got my car and it's too late.
So he turned around
By the time we get set up.
my emails at the last time.
Oh,
They said,
That's right.
that's good. Let's host it public meeting. I thought that's very fine. Somebody's been around.
They're on the for issue.
What do you want to know?
And then they finally said, two young people that have Parkinson's, but this really matches that. Okay, so we're going to start treatment for it. That's cool. The other thing they did, was they,
I'm not in one of mine.
I think it was 22. Yes. Put it in.
You know, this is very beneficial to me because it brings me up a lot of questions just like so I know, I'm just out in the cemetery. I don't even know what fire department service is my
And it has helped.
Women are the ones who are doing all the way.
Oh, yes, well, no. That brings up
True most cases.
We need to do that from the line to try to help her finish these calls. It would help. Give her a call, encourage her.
Very long
Email you. We have to sort of campaign to try to keep her in the system.
I don't know that necessarily they got this critical stuff that's like, it's up to everybody, this is something that's yeah, so, do you want me to email that to you?
That's not a requirement of the board, that's something that
The deal is, she two things huge today.
That's right.
Yeah, but it sounds like
Well, I tell you what, did you film this? Did you send a message to
Today, we're into his I told him, well, now that you're in the Constitution, you gave us, they call me curious. Well, I know he's, after talking to them, when do you sleep, right? I mean, same with me, never. Their mind's a whole different thing. But anyway, I gotta talk to him and say, you know, I left him 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's not helpful, she's supposed to be our
No.
I did for a little while, a couple years ago, and then whole thing ended up. Then it just chilled out. Till it came up again.
He's got a wealth of knowledge in a lot of things, I think, you know, in that area, I'd like to get in that area. No, he's pretty mellow. I felt bad when he ended the Bixby thing, I'm like, I don't do all that freaking nice stuff, right? I mean, throw me some coffee and creamer, and I'm good. If you don't have creamer, throw milk in it. I don't need $5 latte or whatever. It was a sandwich from Neil's Farm. And he was good, man, so I felt bad.
I better for now.
It's a business, it's a
He's got like, I don't know, 7 businesses.
But he lives up north, right?
Skiing there.
When I started making political issues, like, you still have a sign. You still I can come get with you.
I'm gonna talk to the, I'll help you with finance. He says it's cheap. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay,
I will talk to you later.
you can take care.
Yeah.
She has two roles. That's my personal opinion. I would be interested in knowing how many people. Yeah, anytime.
Well,
Did she tell you when you talked to him?
Wednesday. Yes, what, did I do something wrong? Am I in trouble?
I homeschool my son.
I mean, no, I have to.
And, okay, so, and, okay, so.